Have you ever been surrounded by people yet felt utterly unseen? As if you could disappear entirely and the world around you wouldn't miss a beat? What if the loneliest person alive discovered real peace, not among crowds, but in a place so remote no one could possibly follow? In southern England, there once lived a man named Elliot. He held a demanding job at a bustling advertising agency in London. Each morning he boarded the same packed commuter train, bodies pressed close, yet everyone impossibly distant. Each evening he joined colleagues at their usual pub, chuckling at familiar jokes delivered like rehearsed lines. His phone vibrated endlessly with notifications. His social feeds overflowed with likes, comments, and shares. To anyone watching from outside, Elliot possessed it all. Friends, success, a vibrant existence filled with constant motion and sound. Yet every night when the lights went out and he lay staring into the darkness of his bedroom ceiling, a profound hollow opened inside him. Not sharp grief exactly, but something heavier and more persistent, like a weight that had settled deep in his chest years earlier and refused to leave. He struggled to name it. People filled his days from dawn until dusk. Still, an essential piece remained absent, something vital he could sense but never quite grasp. One Friday, his team organized a celebration in his honor. There was cake, colorful balloons, singing, applause. Elliot smiled warmly, laughed at the right moments, expressed gratitude, and posed cheerfully for group pictures. But as he walked alone to the station afterward, under the streetlights, a quiet realization struck him hard. Not a single person at that gathering had asked how he was truly feeling. No one knew his mother had died months before. No one realized he had spent recent weeks weeping silently into his pillow after the lights were off. His contact list held hundreds of names, yet not one person truly understood who he was. That same night, Elliot reached a turning point that stunned everyone who knew him. He resigned from his position, he sold his apartment, and he relocated to a small, overlooked island off the Scottish coast called the Isle of Muck. Barely 30 residents lived there. No bars, no offices, no rush of people, just relentless wind, crashing waves, and vast quiet. His old friends believed he had lost his senses. His former manager described it as a collapse. His online followers watched his profile gradually fade until every trace of him vanished from their feeds. During those initial weeks on the island, Elliot wondered whether they had been correct. The absence of city clamor and endless alerts felt overwhelming. Stripped of distraction, he was left alone with his own mind. Sleep eluded him at first. Thoughts churned relentlessly. Past mistakes, unspoken words, buried regrets. He felt exposed, as though a long-hidden injury had finally been uncovered and left to sting in the open air. Then one gentle change occurred. Early one morning, he strolled to the shoreline just as the sun rose. The horizon glowed with delicate shades of orange and rose. The sea lay mirror calm. For the first time in ages, he left his phone behind. He simply stood, breathing deeply, letting the salt wind brush his skin while waves whispered against the stones. A single tear slipped down his face, not born of sorrow, but of something closer to release. Gradually, he shaped a new rhythm. He rose with the light, wandered the coastal paths until his racing thoughts grew still, began composing handwritten letters to his departed mother, pouring out apologies, confessing his isolation, admitting how exhausted he had grown from constant pretense. He prepared plain meals, finally opened books that had gathered dust for years, and sketched the seabirds that perched on the nearby boulders. Bit by bit, the heaviness that had pressed on him for so long began to ease, not because another person arrived to repair the void, but because Elliot at last recognized its true nature. The ache had never stemmed from physical solitude. It had come from being severed from his own inner world. For years he had drowned out his thoughts with crowds, busyness, screens, and endless chatter, not out of genuine connection, but out of dread at what he might encounter if everything became still. On the island lived an elderly woman named Margaret. At 78, she had called Muck home for half a century. One evening, over tea, Elliot asked the question that had haunted him for months. "Margaret, don't you ever feel lonely living so far from everything?" She set her cup down gently and smiled. "Dear lad," she replied, "I've been on my own since my husband left this world 20 years ago, but lonely? Never." He glanced around the empty room, puzzled. "What company do you keep then?" he asked. She touched her own chest lightly. "This one," she said, "my own." Those two simple words shifted everything for Elliot. He began to see a reality many spend lifetimes avoiding. Solitude and loneliness are not the same. You can feel desperately alone inside a marriage, surrounded by laughter at a celebration, or buried beneath millions of followers online. Loneliness measures not the number of people nearby, but the depth of connection to your own self. Time passed. Elliot continued writing letters and drawing. He timidly submitted sketches and short reflections to a small literary magazine. Readers responded with unexpected warmth. His words carried an honesty that only prolonged self-reflection can produce. One piece in particular spread widely. Titled simply, "The Quiet," it contained the line, "For 32 years I fled silence, convinced it would ruin me. When I finally stopped running, I learned it was the only thing that could heal me." Messages arrived from strangers across distant cities. They wrote that his story made them feel truly visible for the first time. They too had filled their lives with noise to escape the stillness within. They too had stood in crowds and felt invisible. Then, on an ordinary rainy Tuesday, an envelope appeared among his mail. Inside rested one faded, worn photograph of a young woman standing on the exact stretch of shore Elliot visited each dawn. On the reverse, in handwriting he knew at once, were written these words: "This is where I found myself. I hope one day you find it too. Mom." His fingers shook. His mother had once stood on those same rocks, watched those same tides, come to this very island to mend her own quiet wounds. Without knowing, he had traced her path to the place she had sought solace long before. He sank to the cottage floor and wept. These tears felt different, gentle, warm, the sort that arrive when you finally return home, not to a location, but to your own being. Elliot never returned to London. He remained on the island, completed a book, and later created a modest retreat where others could step away to rediscover themselves. On the opening page of that book, he placed one dedication for anyone who has ever felt unseen amid a sea of faces. The remedy is not found in gathering more people. The remedy is you. So, if these words reach you now, listen closely. Being alone does not mean you are defective or unloved. Sometimes solitude is simply life granting you room to finally encounter the one person that matters most, you. Do not flee the silence. Stay in it. Listen carefully, because within that stillness waits a voice that has been patient all this time, your own voice. You are never truly alone once you have made peace with who you are.